this is an important asset. This is an asset that you build for a lifetime of wealth. Well, if Samson Mao's right and it goes up to $1 million next year, you know what? You're going to need $100,000, not $1,700, $100,000 to get that Bitcoin, maybe 200 million. Well, how in the hell are we going to scale up Bitcoin? We all know that you can't scale on the base layer, and Satoshi knew that too.
Imagine a train pulling away from the station, filled with those who saw the future in Bitcoin, while others stand frozen on the platform. George Bodine reveals why this is happening and how to ensure your ticket to generational wealth before it's too late. Don't miss this urgent wake-up call.
People are still saying, well, is this a good time to buy? You and I mean, we've got our Bitcoin. I got a ticket. I'm just sitting there. I'm on the train now. I walked on board. I had a ticket. I'm sitting down next to you and all of our friends and people that are in this space that are together with us. We're all sitting there on the train. We're ready to go. But there's a whole world out there on that platform that's standing there watching us, and they're not getting on board. And we're going to end up leaving them behind. And there'll be people that are calling out to the kids that they love or a brother, and they're not going to get it, and they're going to be saying, no, come on board. But once the train pulls out, they're going to run along the side of it. They're going to look at it. It's going to go away. They'll see the back of that train disappear, and it's too late for them. I won't say it's too late. Let's put it this way. If you know what you're doing in this space right now, you need to be building generational wealth for the people that you love that don't get it. At Thanksgiving, you don't need to be crowing about your Bitcoin. What you need to do is just quietly stack and start building generational wealth, so that someday, like me, you can look at me, you see how old I am. I'm going to die at some point. I'm on the back side here. I can see the end up in front. And when I'm gone, those kids, they're going to go to the reading of the will, and they're going to sit there, and my grandkids, and you know what? They're going to have a ticket. It's going to magically appear in their hands. They're going to get on the Bitcoin train on the platform that just magically appeared, and they're going to go down and start their journey. So, this is an important asset. This is an asset that you build for a lifetime of wealth, generational wealth. People need to get on board. This is your moment. And, soon, as I mentioned, I really think the prices are going to start accelerating. In that last cycle, I bought all the way down to 17,000. So imagine, for $1,700. Now, that's not out of the reach of a lot of people. I got 1/10 of a Bitcoin. Well, if Samson Mao's right and it goes up to $1 million next year, you know what? You're going to need $100,000, not $1,700, $100,000 to get that Bitcoin. It makes a big difference. We have got some major issues going forward with that adoption. If you get back to the just basic first principles here, and you look at a blockchain, and you're going to build a blockchain, you're going to have 3 buckets, and you're only going to get 2 of them. You're going to have to choose. You've got decentralization, security, and scalability or speed. And you get to only have 2 of them. Can't have the 3rd bucket. So Satoshi wisely forego scalability or speed. And we all know that you're only going to do about 7 transactions a second on the base layer. But what most people don't know is that the blocks themselves are very restricted. And I'm not talking about, I don't even need to discuss the block size war, because you're not going to be able to fix that by increasing block size. Right now, we're going to mine 55,000 blocks this year, a little bit more, at an average of about 949, 955, somewhere in there. Each one of those blocks over the last year, they had 4,094 transactions on average in them. But those are not 4,094 individual people. Those are transactions. If you look at how many people we could have transact on the base layer, it'd probably be 150 million people, maybe 200 million. Well, how in the hell are we going to scale up Bitcoin? We all know that you can't scale on the base layer, and Satoshi knew that too. I figured this out. If you took 4 out of the 8 billion people, tried to do that with 2 transactions, in and out, it'd take 25 years to get them onto Bitcoin. So a lot of people say, well, Lightning's the answer. Well, guess what? Lightning has to touch the base layer to open or close channels. And it's the same thing. You've got a multi-sig, and that a multi-sig takes up more data in a transaction. It makes it more clogged. That's not going to work either. Now, I love Lightning. I use it. I use the crap out of it. I used it down in El Salvador. It was a blast, and I still have it, and I still like zapping people. And one of the things that's great about Lightning is, guess what? The cost is so cheap, you can do that. It's wonderful. And then, I've been looking at Fedimint. Fedimint's quite an interesting idea. idea, or liquid Bitcoin, where you're pegged sidechain going in and out of the sidechain. That could allow us to do some massive scaling. And I mentioned earlier about Bitcoiners maybe being a path to great wealth. Well, guess what? You could do that. If you were a trusted third party, if you went to some community down in South America and you were trusted within that community and maybe 3 or 4 different elders or people that were trusted, you could start your own bank down there and help a lot of people. But the problem is that, and the institutions are here. I thought they were going to be here in 21, and that's another thing I got wrong. Again, they weren't here. FASB, they couldn't get here with FASB. And the other thing is Bitcoin's too small then. It didn't have enough liquidity. There's not enough market. People are pissy about these options trading, and they're not thinking this through. You can't have, if you want Bitcoin to scale to 100 trillion, if you want it to be really a scalable network, you're going to have liquidity, and you can't have it without options. Nobody's going to come in, no major institution will come in and put a $30 million position in Bitcoin without being able to hedge that. It's not possible. It'd be irresponsible. You got to have these options there. And not only that, here's another thing. These ETFs and options, tell me how you would prevent that. I can't think of a way. It's inevitable. And I knew they were coming, and they're here. And I've known options are coming. They're here. And I've thought institutions were here, but guess what? The tripwires have been set. They're triggered. The flares are in the air. They're inside our perimeter, and they're with us now. Sitting on that train is BlackRock, and he takes up 8 zillion seats. He crowds you out of the car, but he's here, and they have power. You look at Saab 121. Larry Fink, he wants to have a banker. He calls on the weekend. The next thing you know, Bank of New York is his banker now. So they got an exception for them. They're here, and they are going to change our landscapes significantly. And when you start talking about block space, a good person to talk to would be Bob Burnett. He started me down this rabbit hole. He's a CE barefoot mining. And the more and more I study this issue, the more and more I see he's right. We're going to have some big things coming up. We've only got 6 or 7 mining pools right now that
George Bodine vividly describes the Bitcoin movement as a train filled with visionaries, those who understand the potential of generational wealth through Bitcoin. As the train departs, many are left behind, unaware of the opportunity slipping through their fingers. Bodine warns that the time to act is now. With institutional players like BlackRock entering the space and Bitcoin ETFs gaining traction, the landscape is changing rapidly. He emphasizes building wealth not just for yourself, but for the loved ones who may not yet grasp Bitcoin's significance. For Bodine, this is not about boasting at Thanksgiving, but quietly stacking sats, preparing for a future where Bitcoin could reshape financial power. However, challenges like scalability, adoption, and institutional dominance loom large, signaling the need for innovation and community-driven solutions. Stick around for his powerful insights on navigating this revolution.
Are basically controlling 85% of all the transactions in the mempool. I mean, they're building the mempool templates. They're the ones that have power there. People are just blindly sending in their successful blocks to these mining pools who already have a pre-built template. Ocean, that's another thing that Bob is behind, and I strongly support that pool. I think that Ocean might be a way to get some of our power back in the coming years. But I don't want to just be totally dark. If you zoom out, once again, tell me one way that we could have kept these institutions from coming into our space. I can't think of a way. So they're here, and we're going to have to deal with it. And as this gets bigger and bigger, it's going to change some of the things that we thought we were going to be able to do. One of the things that Bitcoin, once you start down the rabbit hole, it changes everything about you. You start to read more about history of money, how central banks are formed. Unfortunately, when you start getting a lot of that knowledge, it's kind of depressing, because you realize that we're in a very rigged system that is privileged for a very small elite, and that we have in the past not had much power in that system. So Bitcoin, it's kind of that asymmetric power. It's like a superpower, that a hero would have. And when you understand that and you start to think about it that way, it gives you a lot of hope. I do believe that going forward, a lot of the traditional financial platforms, the asset allocators, the central banks, their power is going to decrease over us. I don't think that the dollar itself, I mean, a lot of people think the dollar is going to go away. I don't think that is the case. I think it's going to be a long time before we see that. But the good news is that there are a lot of smart people, like you said. I mean, I'm just an artist right now. There are a lot of smart people that have these things on their mind too. And I think we'll see a lot of really interesting solutions going forward. And, you know, if we are successful with this SBR, that is going to also change the landscape. We will be in a global arms race then for stacking sat. Imagine you're in that train car and the United States comes through the door walking on board that platform. They're going to take up some room in that car. And we're going to have to, I guess really what I'm saying is my plea is to the people who are a lot smarter than me. I hope that we can come up with some ideas so that we can get the other people out there on that platform with us on our journey.
As George Bodine explains, the Bitcoin journey is transformative, both financially and personally. It's about more than wealth. It's about empowerment, understanding, and reshaping a system long dominated by elites. While institutions flood the space, there's still room for individuals to make a difference. The clock is ticking. Will you stand idly on the platform, or will you secure your ticket to a decentralized future? As Bodine says, the choice is ours, but the opportunity won't wait forever.